Justin Burkowski here, and I'm dedicating this video to Brian Payne. This is for the Real Wrestling Hall of Fame page, and a duty for all pro wrestling, because everybody has all the misinformation on wrestling and all the wrong ideas, because WWE, they own the rights and the names to WCW and everything, so since they own it, and they pretty much own everything, so they could make the DVDs and tell half the story, and then WCW doesn't exist as its real self to defend itself. There's nobody to defend WCW, so WWE puts out these DVDs ever since 2003, when they started popping out those DVDs, like I said this in my last video I made, and they just keep, they don't lie, but they pretty much, they just say, they emphasize on all the bad of WCW, and not everything else, and they just got like bitter wrestlers that were so bitter and hated it and rejected. So of course when you're like, oh, let's make a DVD on the rise and fall of WCW or shit on it, well of course you're gonna get the guys that are completely warped and jaded and hate it, like Chris Jericho's. So they're just like, hey, say all that. That's completely biased and not a fair perspective, because you're getting people that are just looking for a reason to shit on it. That's not being fair and unbiased. Or that's like, wouldn't that say that's like if you were dating somebody and it's between both of you's fault when you break up and everything, and you literally just tell your part of the story and then burn the other person. It didn't, like, ignoring the fact of everything you did. Isn't that what it is? Right, Brittany?
Mm-hmm.
They're only telling one half of the biased crap, because Vince McMahon is somebody who would rather have his small base audience of people he could control that he warped by them just believing everything he says on the DVDs, because they're like, well, Vince McMahon's wrestling, he said it, they can't be wrong. And people are just buying into all this stuff, and they're not really looking into the details or watching the film or the episodes in order as they really happened back then of WCW and WWF. And if they do, they're already warped against it anyway. It's unfair. It's already ruining it from the beginning. And I said this in my one video I made before, where actually I showed all the footage proving every little thing where WWF cloned itself to WCW a year right after WCW did it. And it's funny how that part with the video is actually showing all the footage on the old. This is the ripoff of Tron 3000. You know, Chris Jericho has his Jeritron 3000. Well, this is the ripoff of Tron 3000, and don't make me pull it out, where I have every single episode of WCW, WWF, everything, going back to end of everything on tape. The ripoff of Tron 3000 will reveal everything in order, in date, proving how WWF copied and cloned itself right in order of WCW and ECW. And so this magical machine here, the 80-inch baby, will unblind all WWE marks that are warped by Vince McMahon and all brainwashed with the wrong information. I'm not a villain. I'll be honest with everybody. Everybody's thinking I'm just some WWE killer and I'm a WCW mark. No, I'm not. I'm giving the facts on what's fair. Technically, WCW did everything first. WWF copied it, and then whatever, and then caught up to them in the ratings and did good. But the fact is that they copied and became WCW to get to them. That'd be like, okay, how could, the Monday Night War and the whole WWF versus WCW crap. Okay, here's what nobody on the planet ever thought of, because nobody thinks about it and puts two and two together. Okay, so I said this in the other video, I'm sure, because that was like a 5-part, and I got to get that back up, but like I said, WWE blocked my one where I showed all the videos because of copyright, so I have to put that back up. But okay, here's what happened. In 95, Eric Bischoff took over WCW as creative control and everything as the president, and he changed the whole formula and everything, and he made what WWE calls their Attitude Era. Well, he did that first while WWE was still like in the 80s and out of date, where nobody was watching it. It had the lowest ratings. It was in the toilet. I even proved it. Even their most loyal people, who are marks, who grew up on them, and Mick Foley in his book. I showed in my one video his exact writing from his book, where he's saying WWF was in the toilet and Vince McMahon was hiring people on promises, and even copied WCW's formula to catch up. It's just a fact. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, WWF didn't do good things in 99 or 2000 in its Attitude Era. But the fact is that it is a carbon copy of Bischoff's WCW, which is the real Attitude Era. He just copied it. I showed all the footage showing the exact clones, But I have to get that back up. And that's what I'm getting at with all this. But I don't want to go to the video. I want to just show the magazines or have you go and look it up. I can give you the... And people just don't want to admit it. They just say, oh... So that's my point. So I'm going to use the magazines for certain points, and I'm just going to bring up... Because here's the whole point of the video, basically, which I didn't even get to already. Or here's what I want to say a second ago. I am not just some WWE hater. Factually, Vince McMahon is a scumbag who he inherited his dad's company. He didn't even do shit, and he's not even a wrestling guy. He inherited his dad's company, which was a branch from the NWA anyway. The WWF was a branch from the NWA. So technically, and WCW is the NWA. It's a giant chunk of it. When Ted Turner bought it, he changed his name to WCW. So WCW is the NWA, basically, a chunk of it. And WWF is a part of the NWA from the big... It's a branch... Back in the day, in the 80s, or with all the territories, all the owners had an agreement where they all shared talent and they all had their area, and you didn't try to put me out of business. We all had a good, where we'd share talent, and it was all peace. Vince McMahon inherited his dad's company, and he decided to lure every other wrestler and destroy all the other companies because he wanted to be the only one selfishly and greedy, and he's a scumbag. And that's how... And people just let him off the hook for that. He literally brainwashed every new fan now. Because, you gotta remember, WCW and ECW have been gone since 2001. That is 16 years ago. Which means anybody born then are now able to drive. So he has a whole new audience of kids, or people, that didn't watch then. So they just get off what he said on his DVDs, or watch the new product. Now, they don't know. Or they don't care. Or they're just... Well, they're biasly warped. Without the facts. Or just basically programmed to just hate WCW as the villain. What do you think Vince McMahon did? He manipulated the whole DVDs and everything and got people like Jericho to shit on it and destroy the whole thing. That was what he did. That's the whole point. All that time, it's gone. And that's what I'm trying to do is... So, I did the video last time showing you all the footage on how WF literally copied everything, which I got to get back up. And whatever, and I went from exact books, like I said about Mick Foley's book, saying you the facts that actually, because here's another problem with today's perspective, is everybody's talking from now, but not the people who actually were then in, I hate to say the 90s, like as if it's so long ago, but that's sad, that's how long, into 2001, all these people weren't there then. They're all these new fans that picked up late and started watching all the DVDs and just bought into what W said, saying, oh wow, WCW was this piece of crap that just tried to compete with the big WWF. That's not true. WWF is from the NWA. They were just another company. In the 80s, there was the AWA, there was the NWA, and there's the WWF and all that, and they were all just the territories. And whatever region you grew up in, that's who you saw. So got people like Mick Foley and Chris Jericho grew up on WWF, so they're sentimentally attached to WWF. So WCW made them household name stars because WWF wouldn't sign them back before the Attitude Era, before Vince had to change his product and hire smaller wrestlers and hardcore wrestlers. Because Vince's product, you watch Vince's product before 96 when he started copying Bischoff's WCW. It is all either freak, cheesy gimmicks for kids, like Kane was the dentist, or they're all clean-cut muscle guys, like Lex, or they're all like... He doesn't have any hardcore or any type of small... like regular-sized wrestlers. Eric Bischoff's the one who introduced the whole world to all the cruiserweights, which are just, regular-sized people, the non-heavyweight divisions to the world, and where guys like Chris Jericho would be nobodies on the indie circuit or in Japan, and they never have been heard of. So it's thanks to WCW bringing them, and Mick Foley's, WCW brought them in, where they never wanted to be there anywhere. It's not fair. They're basically raised on WF, and if WCW gave them 50 world titles, they still would have jumped to WF or whatever, and basically they never really wanted to be WCW anyway. So Jericho, he's a biased opinion. You can't go by with his podcast or whatever, because the facts are it's not true. And Cactus Jack even admits it, or Mick Foley. Mick Foley was a household name in WCW already, but the problem is, pre-95, pre-Bischoff, WCW, when the Monday Night War thing boomed wrestling, nobody was watching the WF and no one was watching WCW. It was very low ratings like now. And Cactus Jack was there as a main eventer, feuding with Sting, feuding with Vader when they were the World Heavyweight Champion. He was a household name. Just because you don't get the world title doesn't mean you're not a main guy in storylines on the show. That's the misconception. Every fan goes by the WWF formula. They look back and they're like, oh, well, Mick Foley never got the world title, the WCW heavyweight title, so he must have been a nobody or held down. Oh, no, he got millions of, storyline or everything, or TV time, and was feuding with all the main guys. He was a main guy. Not everyone got it, or maybe they would have. You don't know. They left before. Same thing with Steve Austin. Steve Austin was literally feuding with Ric Flair and the Horseman, who was the face of the company back then, and he had every title you could think of, and he was the exact same character when he was stunning Steve Austin. He just didn't do the middle finger and everything because they weren't allowed to do that then, but he's the exact same character. WWF just basically just put Stone Cold on it, and just it's the exact same thing. They didn't come up with anything. They just basically, what happened was WCW had all these guys and everybody, and they had a roster of way too many guys, and they couldn't hold on to everybody. And they could have, but they actually let them free on a contract where Eric Bischoff could have been an asshole, and he could have just left them in contract and kept them whatever if he wasn't going to do anything. But he didn't. And so first of all, they were main guys on TV and main part of the show. And Austin, who knows? He probably, because he was with the main event with Ric Flair, he probably, I don't know, he might have, we'll never know if he would have got, or if he ever came back or whatever, you don't know. But he ended up getting hurt, and then the formula changed. Because when he got hurt, it was still the old WCW, the pre-Bischoff, I want to call it the Attitude Era, because people think that's WWE, that's really WCW, because they did it first for WWE to copy. So anyway, that's pre-95 Monday Night War, where the format was changing because Bischoff was changing. He took over. So them guys, it wasn't a diss like, we think they're just, I don't know, they just weren't going to use them. That's not an insult. It just means you weren't going to get used. So then they actually let them go, but they could have. So basically, WWF just got all WCW's hand-me-downs that were already household names. And as for Chris Jericho's and stuff, and all them got all the the Eddie Guerreros and everything. Yes, they wrestled in ECW in 95 and all that, but people, okay, here's the problem with everybody's mindset right now. They think because WWE released that Rise and Fall of ECW DVD back in 03 and everything, they never watched it back then when it was new, or if they did, they are super fans, so they know about it. But we're talking mainstream United States. Like the whole mainstream, like the whole country. They never heard of ECW. It wasn't until 99, ECW 2000 wasn't even on TNN, Spike TV. They weren't even on main TV. For the longest time, they were on local syndication TV, only on the East Coast. And it'd be like early in the morning or something like that. Nobody, unless you were a huge wrestling fan. Just like Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor and those Ring of Honor, they're an indie company from 02 to 2 years ago where they got on UPN or Ion or whatever. Nobody even heard of them mainstream United States. It was only the super wrestling fans knew of them and got them on the DVD. They weren't on TV. They were indie. Now they're not indie because they're on cable or they're on TV, whatever. People have the misconception saying by playing of thinking of ECW now, knowing it, but back then it wasn't the ECW that you think of now. They think of Chris Jericho now as the former world champion and all this stuff, or the household name. They're like, welcome, Chris Jericho wasn't given the world title. He got screwed over. It's like, no, back then, WCW made him. He was basically unheard of. ECW was a very low indie company or show nobody really saw unless you're a super. Nobody knew about it. Everybody just knew of WWF and WCW. Nobody knew of the indie circuit on the national mainstream base. That's the misconception. Everybody's talking as if you're thinking of them now. It's Monday quarterback thinking. You have to think then where they're like, WCW didn't make any stars. Yes, they did. They made every single guy. They made Austin, Cactus Jack, Chris. They actually made Booker T, Diamond Dallas Page, Goldberg, The Giant, Farouk. Farouk was WCW World Champion before even the Attitude, before the Monday Night War, before Bischoff and all that. But nobody watched then. So everybody's picked up watch. I know for a fact because when I was a kid, I wasn't a WWF hater, or so I didn't know or who did what. When I was a kid, I watched both, and I just loved wrestling. I loved the WWF and WCW. I like WCW more because everybody has their favorite. And I like both, and I wasn't some hater. I'm just giving you facts now that they are lying to everybody and fucking over WCW, not giving it its due, and like people like Jericho. That's not fair. WCW is Chris Jericho is a complete no-name. Wrestling in Japan, where the smaller, normal-sized wrestlers were respected, and IWGP and doing and everything in ECW because ECW did it, but nobody heard of them already. WCW is the one who put him on national TV, on TNT, on Nitro, and everything, and let him become Jericho with the Jerichoholics. All that was made in WCW. He feuded with Goldberg. He even admitted and said how Bischoff was going to put him in the NWO and launch him to be the next Shawn Michaels, or launch him from the NWO to break away and become a main event. But he didn't want. He said, "Well, I don't want to go in the NWO because I'll get lost in the shuffle." That's not true. Scott Steiner was the good guy with Rick Steiner, his brother, and he screwed over his brother and joined the NWO. That was the launching pad where they made a Big Papa Pump, the single star, and put him in the main event. Jericho was breaded to be a star in WCW, but he never wanted to be a WCW guy anyway. So even if he got the world title, he would have cried and left anyway. It was a no-win. He got everything. If you watch WCW, he gets like a half an hour of airtime, and he's the main fucking guy feuding with Goldberg and everything. He just bitches to everybody now, saying WCW made me a nothing. I don't care about WCW's politics backstage, about Hogan or all these guys holding them down. It's the same thing with WWF. Nobody realizes that back in the day, I don't even want to say back in the day, but back right before, like 96 or before the whole big explosion, everybody is focusing all on WCW. It's like if you have two fires, right? And people are just looking over there at this one, and across the street there's another fire going on. You're ignoring it. WWF was the same way with all the politics, and you can go and look it all up with shoot interviews where they tell the truth. All the wrestlers say that. You can look it up. Shawn Michaels in WWF, he had Vince McMahon around his finger like nothing, because Vince McMahon knew how bad the show was doing back then, and Shawn Michaels was his only real wrestler or drawing card back in 95, 94 when no one was watching, in 96 when wrestling wasn't popular. Shawn Michaels was his only guy that was making big, and Shawn Michaels knew it, and he ran the whole backstage. It was the Clique. It was Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, when they were Diesel and Razor, and all of them ran the whole locker room, and they could decide who was fired. And Shawn Michaels, he literally told Vader, when they fought, if you ever touch my hair like that, I'll get you fired. Shawn Michaels back then was an asshole and did all that, and he played all the politics. And why do you think Triple H, when he got joined up with Shawn, because he was running basically the company backstage. So everyone goes on about, oh, WCW backstage was shitty and they held everyone down. It's the same thing with WWF. They never you push a couple. Not everybody could be world champion in a couple years span. First of all, and it's the same thing. But people are just so biasly programmed because of WWF, because WCW's not around anymore, and to just focus on WCW. If you look at 95 to 2001 or 2000 or whatever, I looked at it on all the different world champions. It's the same amount of number, because they're like, oh, WCW didn't build new guys. Actually, they made everybody. It's like I just brought up about Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Jericho, Conan, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, DDP, the whole friggin' roster. Nobody heard of until WCW, because they were all indie. And nobody saw it unless you're a super fan. See me? I'm not some chump. I have every single magazine from back then when I was a kid showing you everything. But unless you are a huge fan and you got the magazines, look at it. That shows all the companies and the rankings. This is what if you're a super fan and you see. Nobody got that back then, okay? Nobody knew this stuff. You didn't know about indie. People, see it? It doesn't even matter. You get my point on the magazine. Okay? See how they do the rankings, PWI? The average fan didn't get that magazine. That was if you're a super fan like now. Okay? Where it's just like with Ring of Honor and stuff. Barely anybody heard of these companies. Nobody heard of AAA or CMLL. Where do you think Eddie Guerrero and all them came from? Nobody heard of it till now, when they do the documentaries of the past, where they're like, oh, the best of Eddie Guerrero on DVD. He was in AAA and all this stuff. So you have all these fans who come along now, and they're like, oh, and they call themselves the super wrestling fan, and they're the wrestling fan with all their friends. I know everything about wrestling. You only know copying word for word off a WWE DVD. You don't really know from really watching or being there like I was and saw everything. And you didn't know about AAA back then, all this crap. You only know about AAA because, oh, you have one match of Eddie Guerrero there on one of his WWE DVDs. That's a fucking fact. And I hate people where I'll go around and meet people and I'll be like, oh, they're a wrestling fan. And then I'll happen to trump them on things because they'll just literally be copying word for word off of WWE DVD. When you're just copying what they're biasly saying. You're not really watching it and do it and getting your own opinion or seeing it for what it is for facts. What do you think, Vince? What do you think WWE is going to say? Like, oh yeah, we stole it. We literally carbon copied ourselves to WCW just to beat them. Okay, here's why WWF loses the Monday Night War anyway. Because it's like a presidential campaign. You have a Democrat and a Republican who are both trying to win off their views, right, Brittany, or no?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the Democrat just changes himself to the Republican and becomes everything they're saying just to win, and they win, did they really win, or did they just become somebody else, Brittany? Right or no? So Vince McMahon, he was a wholesome kiddie product, right? With dentists and kitty and all this crap, right? And then Bischoff did the whole thing where he made Shock TV or Real when he had the outsiders come. They got arrested and were getting arrested from police and doing all that. Where do you think Vince got that whole thing from? With Austin, the whole thing is taken a year as from the start of the Attitude Era, and everything is Bischoff. Because before that, Raw was an hour, and it sucked, and they showed probably 20 minutes of footage from like a pay-per-view from the other night, giving you free footage. And it was an hour with job matches, and it was terrible. Then Nitro, WCW came along where Nitro was 2 hours, and they're the one who gave you everything and brought in all these new stars. They brought in every single wrestler you know now. Your Booker T's, your Ben. What do you think WWF lived off of at 2001 and on? Besides all their OVW guys, which I'll get into. Booker T's, Benoit's, Jericho's. They hate WCW so much. What do you think they are? They literally became WCW storyline-wise and the whole product. And then they live off all the work WCW made making them. So just because you don't give somebody a world title, and they did, Chris Benoit was WCW World Champion. Nobody ever remembers that. Before he DDP, Booker T was WCW Champion. It's called when the time, you can't do everything. Here's the Bischoff era before WCW got fucking canceled and put the plug on. Okay. Like I was saying, 95 basically. I mean, he done 94, but 95 is when he made Nitro, and he launched the war, and then that's when for him, he's the reason that got basically Bischoff saved wrestling without even realizing. Where you're like, no, because if he didn't do that and launch and then do his product and make it edgy, Vince McMahon wouldn't have copied. Then it wouldn't have made them both good. So everybody won. So basically, without him, it's a chain reaction. You don't have Attitude Era WWF, you have everything all kiddie. You have Kane as the dentist, all the stupid kiddie crap. You don't have the WWF you know. Do you know that if it wasn't for WCW and its approach with its attitude, with the NWO and everything, and the luchadors and doing everything and changing the whole product of wrestling on national TV because nobody's seen ECW then, unfortunately. I'm just saying, even though ECW was doing it in 95, just nobody was really seeing it unless you were like really a huge fan. Not the average person, no. They never heard of it. If it wasn't for him, doesn't anybody realize that Vince McMahon, he didn't want any of that stuff. He doesn't. Mick Foley even says in his book he didn't want no edgy or why do you think he didn't hire Mick? He turned down Mick Foley 1,000,000 times. Mick Foley even says in his book the only reason why he signed him later is because they were losing in the ratings and he needed to bring up a shock. So he made Mankind and he changed his whole product. That's the truth. You could even read it in Mankind's book, Have a Nice Day. It's even admitted that Vince McMahon would be nothing if not copying Eric Bischoff. So then why come Eric Bischoff's just the shit? And I'm just trying to be fair here. When I was a kid, I wasn't some hater, but they're a copy. Okay? And I could show you just in a few pictures how they literally copied everything to a T, but people don't put two and two together. Okay? That's the problem. So, what the hell was I saying? Yeah, if it wasn't for him, you'd have... Okay, do you know what... Stone Cold, Steve Austin. Now everyone's like, oh, Stone Cold, he's the best. WCW sucks. WWF. Okay, Vince McMahon wanted the Ringmaster. That was the name of Stone Cold, and he completely ripped apart, tore apart any of Austin's personality. He was just a serious, boring wrestler guy called the Ringmaster, and he was nothing of Steve Austin. But if you watch WCW in 95 and 94, before he went to ECW, he was stunning Steve Austin, and he was with the attitude, the same Stone Cold that you love, without the... without the middle finger, but the same character. Vince McMahon's the one who took him in 96 and ripped out all that. So you should actually be hating WWF. Everybody has it backwards. Vince McMahon had The Rock. The Rock wouldn't be The Rock if it wasn't for WCW going edgy and changing their format first. He would be Rocky Maivia, the smiling, just goody Hogan, take your vitamins guy. Flex Cavana, Rocky Maivia, and everybody hated him. And there were signs saying, die, Rocky, die. And everybody hated the product. That is a fact. That is not me voicing an opinion. Factually, WCW and Bischoff launched what is. You wouldn't have a WWF you like for that period if it wasn't for WCW. Or Bischoff, even pre-Bischoff, WCW was more hardcore. Cactus Jack was there doing hardcore matches backstage, where WWF didn't even do that till '98, once they were copying their attitude. So that's a bunch of crap too. Like how people have the wrong idea and because nobody watched before '90s. People started watching the WWF, or like come '97, they all jumped on the bandwagon, all mainstream, all the whole country. Nobody was like, it was very dead after the post '80s. WWF was dead. And so, WCW wasn't even doing then good. I'm not picking sides. I'll be completely unbiased by saying right now, pre-95, pre-Bischoff WCW, I think it was a superior product than WWF then, because it had hardcore with Cactus Jack. They did shows with Japan and brought in Muda, and they did all the they did all the Lucha Libre wrestling when WWF still never even heard of it, even in 92. Even in the 80s, in 89, Muda was there. They were 10 years ahead of WWF. And had the better wrestlers. That's a fact. And the better product. It's just that Vince McMahon has all that. I don't know. People they don't put two and two together. They don't watch it. They don't watch it in order. I mean, oh my God. I showed on my other video, which I have to put back up, which was the whole taking you through each copy. People are like, oh, DX is awesome with the Suck It. The NWO in 90s. Okay, the NWO was formed in June 96, right? X-Pac, who everybody loves from DX, he was in the NWO first. He's doing the Suck It in the NWO. The Suck It thing is WCW and NWO. They even took that. Like, WCW, let me just say, WWF has nothing original. Nothing. Like, not even that they took, and people don't even realize. I showed it right on the video, on the other video that I'm going to repost that got blocked, so you'll see that if you didn't know, or you just go look it up right now. But anyway, that's my whole point, is that WWF carbon copied themselves to everything, and people don't put two and two together, that DX is a blatant exact ripoff of the NWO, but it's not only that. Oh, and exactly a year later, DX was formed summer 97, exactly a year later. If you look at the timeline and watch all Raws and Nitros in order, you'll see that WCW does everything first, and then WWF catches up a year later with everything, copying them. I'm not even saying copying the style. I mean an exact clone of a story of the thing. Okay, let's look at the beginning of WCW starting the Attitude Era and starting. Okay, the outset. Hall and Nash invade the show, get arrested, okay, and get put out by police and invade the show. Gee, who does that sound like? Austin and WWF. What do? Eric Bischoff is the boss, right? They attack him, and Scott Hall gives him a razor's edge, Kevin Nash gives him a fucking power bomb off the stage, beats up the boss. Okay, Eric Bischoff is the boss. Okay, where did WWF get that idea from for Austin to fight the boss? Gee, WCW. So what the hell? You like WWF because you like WCW. Everybody forgets that. See, when I was a kid, we liked both products, but we knew WCW did that first. Now it's, just shit on WCW all fucking day. That's complete bullshit because of people like Chris Jericho who say whatever. They were never going to be happy anyway. Like, okay, what else? Let's see. Here, want to look at something right here? Right here. Every magazine, then. You know how people talk now? Where they're just like, WCW was not... No. If you... See, all these magazines were printed then. It's not like now where Vince McMahon manipulates history by rewriting it all, having people talk now. I have the magazines proving everything of being written then to show you people's mindset, how different. How easy is it to say, like, now, and change the whole... Here, look at this. And it's the proof, because the magazine knows it, and it's giving credit to both. Okay, look at this. Right here, for all you people who want to shit on WCW. Okay. Right here it says, Vince Vince, this is the whole storyline when he's feuding with Austin, who doesn't care how he gets what he wants as long as he wants it, what he wants. Secretly, Vince has been admiring Austin for the past few years because Austin's the main reason the WWF is so successful. If not for Austin and the Austin-Vince feud, Raw might be off the air and Nitro might be the only remaining Monday night viewing choice for wrestling. Austin single-handedly saved the WWF. See, that's my whole point, is they copied everything from the NWO, having DX and Austin do NWO things, getting arrested, beating up the boss. Okay, Vince McMahon being the evil boss and then feuding with Austin. That's their most successful storyline. They're even talking about it here. This is when finally WWF caught up in the ratings in this of this magazine in late 99. Okay, this is the September 99 issue. Okay, and they show you the ratings in every issue. Okay? So, where'd they get that idea from? Eric Bischoff turns on WCW, his own company he's running in the storyline, joins the NWO, the rival company they made, because WWF wasn't a rival at the time because they weren't a threat. So the NWO is not a faction or a group, it's another company. That was the whole point, is they made the NWO to rival with WCW. So people are like, oh, they ran the NWO too long or put everyone in it's another company, of course you're going to have it go for years. How come nobody knows what they're talking about? Get it? Do you get it, Brittany?
Yeah.
It's another company. If you're going to feud another company and it's a giant rise like of Hitler, how are you going to make it go away in a year, Brittany? See?
Yeah.
So people are like, the NWO. It's like they put people in the NWO because the NWO had to have enough wrestlers of another company. Get it? How stupid are people? Oh, so let's see. Where did Vince McMahon get the idea to be the evil boss and feud with Austin? Gee, what does that sound like? Eric Bischoff turns on WCW, becomes the evil boss. We're talking in 96. Okay, 2 years before the Austin-Vince feud, and a whole year before Vince McMahon turned heel. Bischoff becomes the evil boss and feuds with Luger and Pipe and the good guys. Same thing! They just stole everything, and how do people not put two and two together to realize that what you like is an exact copy? So you have to say, wow, WCW is the reason for everything. That's not... Brady, do you think that that's me being a pighead or an asshole? No. Wouldn't that be fact if it's in order of dates and on TV? That's your factual order. Vince McMahon became a heel on TV not till November 1997. Is that almost 2 years after that, Brittany? Because he fucked over Bret Hart in real life with the Montreal Screwjob or whatever, when Bret jumped to WCW and the whole so he had to become a heel because everybody hated him, and that was when he just became a heel on TV. That's why. Before then, he always wanted to be a good guy. He was on the announcing all the time, and he was just playing a regular announcer, not the owner. If you watch pre 97, pre-attitude WWF, Vince McMahon is on the announcing as just a good guy, and you're not supposed to know he was the owner with Jerry Lawler making fun of him. Right? Anybody, if you watch the old Raws that nobody watched. Now, unless you were a super fan that got the whole one rating. And I have all the magazines to show the ratings. Right now, if I wanted to, I could pull you out a magazine or you could look it up online anyway, or on the internet. Of the ratings in 94, 95 of Raw. They're like a 0.1, 0.1 or whatever. Doesn't anybody comprehend that the average rerun of a popular show, which is a rerun, like Family Guy, a rerun of it, gets triple the amount of Raw back then. Even of Raw now, for how it's whatever, is still nowhere near the ratings it had back then when it was copying WCW, or when it had, but once WCW was gone, they went back to their old formula and got a whole new audience for him to just give the wrong idea to. So Vince McMahon would rather shut out all the old fans like me, bring upon all these new kids or new people, and have a small little cult following that buy everything he says, opposed to doing a good product and being honest and doing the best he could do like he had to back then. You know why you got that stuff like that? One, it's WCW, and two, he had to compete. How does anybody not get that? You need competition to be good. Because now that they're gone, he just doesn't do anything. And it's like, okay, because you're just a fan that's going to watch anyway. It's like football fans at the NFL. You're going to watch no matter what they do. The teams cheat, or whatever happens, controversy, and then people still watch the next year with sports anyway. People who are pretty much, don't boycott anything. WWE would be even better now, or over the last 15 years when it was like in the shitter, if people boycott and stop watching. Then he'd have to try. Okay? So, let's see. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Here's a... Okay. What does that say here? Can you zoom in on that? Can we see that? There's 3.7 million to 2.4. They completely were slaughtering WWE because, well, they're the trendsetter. They did it all for it, and WWF caught up. Well, of course WWF caught up in 99 or 90 by the time after 95, 96, 97, because they copied them. Vince McMahon didn't beat them doing his way of the kid way with the take your vitamins, Hulk Hogan, the 80s crap. He had to change the whole product overnight in a panic. And you're not going to say how extreme that is or how important WCW is everything? No, Brittany? Like, right? Like, and then everyone's like, oh, well, yeah, but WWF did it better or whatever. How could you say that when they copied it and it's the same thing? That would be an opinion. I mean, you could say that. I mean, I like both. I'll be straightforward to say right now. I like what WWF did in 90, 98, 99, 2000. You know, I'd say they even won 2000. Because of, well, but nobody understands all the details of WCW because they don't know shit. They only know a couple little fragments of it broken apart told you on a DVD, which doesn't tell you anything. But they don't tell you the fact that Vince McMahon pulled ahead with middle fingers or going a little bit further by 99 and stuff than WCW because Eric Bischoff, who was creative control and president and everything, had all the corporate people ahead of him, of Time Warner and all them, and the network above him telling him, you can't do this. You can't do this. Vince McMahon, he owns his company. He could decide, I want to do a crap kids show or a crap, 1 second, and or he could do whatever the hell he wants and change the product overnight. Eric Bischoff didn't have that kind of power. Well, nobody realizes these little details. The minute WWF caught up in the ratings, corporate got scared. They let Bischoff go because they didn't watch the product. WCW was literally owned by Time Warner and people who didn't even watch wrestling or like it. They didn't even watch the product. They just saw, did we beat Raw that night? They just checked the ratings. And the moment WWF caught up, they went into a panic, fired Bischoff, brought in Vince Russo, who everyone hates because WWF telling you to hate, but you don't realize, or because the whole things he did in WCW in 2000 where they're like, oh, he's an idiot, he gave David Arquette the world title. Okay, why is everyone biased to hate WCW? Let me say this is complete bullshit. Okay, yeah, Vince Russo and WCW did that storyline, where they gave David Arquette the WCW title. Every fan who shits on WCW literally talks as if they had David Arquette legitimately pin a WCW wrestler in the ring fair and square and make a fool out of wrestling. No, they didn't. They had it where he was a stupid idiot actor who they knew wasn't even a wrestler and all scrawny, and then he just got himself in a match, and while I forget who the hell he pinned, was knocked out, he just crawled over and stole the fucking win. That's called a storyline where you know he didn't really win it. You knew it was a joke, like this idiot wasn't supposed to be... So that's not desecrating the title because you knew how the story was done. This guy stole the WCW title. It's called the show, people. So if WWE did that, WWE can get away with murder with any dumb storyline, and nobody even complains. But if WCW does one thing, because people are programmed, it's called brainwashing, people. You could get programmed to just hate something from the day you're born and not really have your free mind. That is the truth. I'm not insulting people. I'm just saying how the brain works. Someone could program you from the day you start something to hate something, and you don't have a fair perspective. All right, let's look at the facts. Vince McMahon had at WrestleMania Lawrence Taylor, who was a football player, not even a trained wrestler, beat Bam Bam Bigelow, one of their main wrestlers, clean, right in the ring. Not a storyline where you cheated and won the belt with the guy knocked out from a guitar shot. We're talking cleanly beat Bam Bam Bigelow, a wrestler, and made a mockery out of wrestling, making it look like a joke that some football player could come in and beat a wrestler. So how could the David Arquette storyline where you knew he didn't really win it be worse than Vince McMahon having a football player beat one of his top wrestlers at WrestleMania, his biggest show? Does that make me biased, Brittany? Or is that a good point?
Good point.
Well, isn't that like what's worse? Them having a David Arquette didn't cleanly beat a wrestler. He just ran in and pinned a guy who got knocked out. That was the whole point of the storyline. That's how stupid people are. Where does anybody who complain about WCW, have you even watched it or anything? Like, how old are you? Or are you biased? And another thing, why is it that everybody loves WWF and Vince McMahon when he destroyed all the territories, fucked everyone over, one, two, everybody loves ECW, the rebellious ECW. He made a mockery of it and gave himself the title, and he promised, he brought it back in 06, the ECW. He brought it back and made it the old ECW with all the ECW wrestlers. And he said Paul Heyman was going to run it, the owner who was the original owner and mastermind behind ECW, if you don't know. He left, and then when his ratings were going up and he realized that people like ECW better than his own product, because back before he was copying ECW and WCW. Well, WCW and WWF were both copying ECW back then, to be fair, because nobody knew about it. So on national TV, both of them were able to copy ECW because the main people didn't know. You know, that's just being fair. They both copied them. Okay, so I'm being completely fair on the truth that people don't realize. So he realized WWF was dead from 02 to now, basically in the sense of the ratings of back then. It's like what. But anyway, in 06 he was getting a little bit more of a higher rating than. We're not talking about a good rating like that. We're just saying like high, and he realized, wow, people like ECW better. So what did he do? He canned it, turned into where all the original ECW guys. He called them the ECW originals. Then he brought in all his wrestlers or all his and he had them just beat them and turned all the ECW guys into a joke. And he had his guys destroy them. And then he ruined the product and gave himself the ECW title and shit on it. He gave himself a world title, and he's not even a wrestler. Twice, the WWF title, and he's not even a wrestler. So how's that not the same as David Arquette, who's not a wrestler, getting it? And he shit on a whole company that people love, that he copied and stole everything from in the first place, then decided to also take a piss on it and give himself the title. So, Brittany, I don't want you to be biased because you're with me on it, but what would you think is worse? He shit on a whole company and gave himself the title.
Yeah.
And come on, people... Or they love, he's cool. Yeah, Bischoff's the scumbag, but Vince McMahon's cool. Vince McMahon is a million... Doesn't anybody realize that Bischoff made some mistakes like any normal person, but Vince McMahon's actually the scumbag in wrestling who fucked over every company and tried to put out the NWA and WCW early, back before Bischoff? So they're like, Vince McMahon literally brainwashed everybody to hate Eric Bischoff and WCW, saying, they're this company who tried to put us, the WWF, wrestling. We're the wrestling out of business. No, you're not. You're not wrestling. First of all, WCW and the NWA are older. And Bischoff came along later to get revenge on the fact that you tried to put them out first in the first place, but nobody was there to watch any of that. So Bischoff's not the bad guy. He came, and Vince McMahon's the evil empire. But he has everyone brainwashed the other way, where everyone hates Bischoff. Bischoff, it's funny. He plays the rat heel on TV, and it's an act. And people believe it, but Vince McMahon, he is that, and he plays it on TV, and everyone, people give him the okay, though. It doesn't make sense. Like, look at people like Jim Ross, the announcer. He leaves WCW for whatever fallout. Now, this is pre-Bischoff WCW. He was even WCW first. WCW had everybody first. WWF just got all their hand-me-downs when they had too many fucking people, because WCW had like a roster of 400 guys, and WWF barely had any because they weren't doing well. They didn't have the money. That's what nobody realizes, that Vince McMahon only started getting new money as he copied WCW during the Monday Night War. So that he's living off of now. Like, as in right now in 2017, you know. So Jim Ross, Vince McMahon, okay. It's okay, though, for Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon wasted a whole half an hour of Raw making fun of, pretending to be a doctor operating on Jim Ross when he had colon surgery, making a mockery of him because he doesn't like him in real life. Just using Raw to make it a complete, just off. Now, this is just him, a personal vendetta, to use the show for his own personal circus, to make a mockery of Jim Ross, because Jim Ross had colon surgery and was off TV in real life. Vince McMahon reenacted it on TV just to make fun of Jim Ross for no reason, just to be a dick because he hates him. For like 20 minutes of the show, and that's okay, and nobody says a thing. Like, I don't understand why WWF can get away with whatever, and people just point out what WCW did. Or whatever, when it's just a shot. Like it's completely... And you know what? I got news for all you people who are programmed to hate WCW, WCW on its last day had a higher rating than WWF ever had since 2001. Till right now in 16 years. That's fun. That's what nobody realizes. Okay, so isn't that funny? WWF in '95 was a bunch of cheesy gimmicks, like Kane was a dentist. Then when he was getting his ass kicked, he turned him into Kane, the Undertaker's brother. Okay, and Shane Douglas. There's a wrestler, Shane Douglas, everybody knows from ECW, WCW, and everything, and he was Shane Douglas, your teacher. Basically, it was the dumbest gimmick ever. He was a teacher with a chalkboard that fixed your grammar and everything. Now, let's fast forward to after 2001 and after the Monday Night War and after WCW is gone and there's no one for WWF to compete off of. They literally redo all their storylines from '95 when no one watched over again. They get a guy named Matt Stryker to do your teacher and redo that same gimmick. That same exact thing with the chalkboard because they're like, wow, we got this whole new audience of people who never watched any of this stuff and we'll just literally redo everything. So basically, WWF is a joke after WCW is gone anyway because all it is them redoing storylines that they already did in '95. They bring in a guy called Carlito, right? Caribbean Cool, and he spits an apple and he's like, that's not cool, and he spits an apple. Scott Hall was Razor Ramon in WWF before he went to WCW. He was the Cuban Razor Ramon, and he'd spit a toothpick in your face, and he was the exact same gimmick. They even did the same intro when they were debuting by a fruit stand in the Caribbean, like by a fruit, exact T for a T. All WWF did was redo their own stupid ideas. Well, whatever you want to say, over again to where you don't even need to watch wrestling after 2001 because it's all redone shit that, well, the kids don't know that never seen '95, or the people who do. So what are you a fan of? A guy who ripped off everything when it was actually that you liked it in the '90s or the late '90s. I'm sorry, from only '97, '98, '99, 2000. That's it. 4 years of WWF was good, and they copied everything. Okay, and then after that, it's all stuff they redid that nobody wanted to watch anyway because that's what Vince wants. Not what the fans actually. Why do you think nobody watched anymore? And like they did. Okay, so let me Now this is really creepy. Nobody knows what really happened at WCW because Vince McMahon, he got hold of WCW when it went out of business. So, and he did the storyline where he said, I put them out of business. And then he did that whole stupid storyline in 2001 where he took all... This is what the video is actually about, which is sad that I'm just getting into it now, and I really hope this isn't boring, or the fact that I didn't even get to my point yet. Because this video is supposed to be the whole current address of wrestling now, and how it's basically just a hollow shell of itself, and it's a what do you call it? It's nothing. It's a corpse. You could literally delete of WWE the last 15 years or 60 and not even watch it, and you wouldn't have missed anything because they redid everything. It's a corpse. That's what's funny is how pathetic people just keep holding on to it because they're not doing anything new that they didn't already do. But anyway, in 2001, Vince McMahon, because instead of doing what's best for wrestling or what people want, he always just puts his personal vendetta into everything, just like he did in '06. Instead of profiting off the fact that people liked ECW, he just decided to just bash it, destroy it, give himself the title, and then end it. Same thing he did with WCW in '01 because he owned the name and everything after, which I'll get into after if people don't know, for the people who don't know watching this. In 2001, when he got the rights to WCW and a lot of their contracts, he did a storyline where WCW invades in ECW, where he was supposed to be on TV, they're invading and they're not gone. But he owned, and all he did was just have them completely look like losers to his WF guys, just to spite it. He could have did a great storyline with them feuding, but what he did was they made them look like asses to his WF guys, because he'll always just ruin a good thing, just for his own personal, circus to be like, haha. That's his whole show, is a secret joke behind his, but people, they don't care. They'll watch it. You'll watch it. You'll watch if you literally put a piece of shit in the middle of the ring and just put the camera on it for 2 hours of Raw. Because that's how much he's got his small base of fans now that wrapped around his finger. When you realize that he's a piece of crap and he's lied to you, and I'm giving you the facts, I could pull out any tape I have showing you exact through in order, day after day of the show. I can show you every magazine. So anyway, here's the truth what happened at WCW. He didn't put it out of business or beat it in the ratings and put them out of business like he said on Storyline, people. It's a TV show. Actually, what happened was Ted Turner bought WCW, and if anybody doesn't know who Ted Turner is, which is insane, but for for people who just don't know these things, Ted Turner is the man who is this billionaire who owns everything. TBS is Turner Broadcast Station. TNT is Turner Network Television. Turner Classic, TCS is all Ted Turner. Ted Turner owned the Atlanta Falcons. He owned the Atlanta Braves. Ted Turner used to own everything, everything. And anyway, he bought WCW. He bought the NWA and made it WCW and he pretty much put it against WF and put Eric Bischoff to run it as he funded it. Well, Eric Bischoff was the creative and the president. Ted Turner owned it. But what happened in 96? See, in 95, he made the show Nitro to go head-to-head with WWE's Monday Night Raw. And that's when the whole thing sparked, like I said before, where Nitro pulled ahead and sparked the whole everything that you like, basically. But anyway, in 96, it's so creepy that in 96, this is an issue of 96, when WCW is killing them in the ratings, and it's the whole, WWF versus WCW. The whole, like a year into the Monday Night War where WCW surpassed them. Okay? This is from then, not WWF talking bullshit now. Okay. They're breaking down the future of the war. Okay? And it's creepy that they predicted what happens to WCW. Is that 96, Ted Turner bought WCW, I think it was like 89, or not, I don't know, he bought it a few years before, but it wasn't until 95 when Bischoff took over that the whole spark happened. But he owned it previously. But anyway, a year in 96, see, he merged. He sold out to Time Warner or whatever happened. And he didn't own everything anymore, so he lost control. He basically merged just to basically, like, why companies merge. They merge to retire where they could just be rich forever and it doesn't matter what you do. But you merge if you're giving everything to somebody else. So basically he made WCW and basically saved wrestling because both companies were in the shitter. He basically saved wrestling as a whole. But then when he merged, with that Time Warner merge, they actually predicted the whole thing, how he actually signed WCW and wrestling's death, basically. See, they're predicting, will Time Warner, now that they have control of WCW, will they sell to Vince McMahon or just get rid of WCW? That's what happened. WCW didn't go out of business. Time Warner hated wrestling, like I said, and they never wanted anything to do with it, and they just canceled WCW. And they just sold it to Vince McMahon because he was a wrestling guy. And then he lied to everyone saying he put them out of business. But actually, their own owner fucked them over. So that's what's not fair about WCW. See, Vince McMahon is an idiot who can't come up with his own ideas or creative and steals everything. But he owns this company. WCW became a company owned by people who hated wrestling. And were only keeping it alive for years because it was bringing in ratings. Isn't that insane? And they didn't even like it. So people don't understand. They blame Bischoff. Oh, Bischoff's... No, it's not. He was the guy trying to do the best he could for wrestling. And it was everybody built above him that hated him and didn't care and were just waiting for the day he could be canned or get rid of it. So people have the whole wrong idea on everything. That's what people do not understand. So check this out. Okay, here it is right here. So they predict, would Time Warner screw over WCW and sell it to Vince McMahon? I don't know if you can get a good shot of the writing. I'll read it. You could see it, right? Okay, look at this. The rumors began to fly as soon as the merger of Time Warner and Turner Broadcasting was approved. See, Turner, he sold and merged with Time Warner. So, upon the completion of the merger, Time Warner was $17 billion in debt, and will likely look to sell off of some of old Turner properties, which is CNN, another channel, he owned, and WCW. So if Ted Turner is open to selling CNN, what does that say for WCW? So even though WCW is pulling down great ratings and its pay-per-view numbers are on the rise, This is when they were passing WF for the early this is 96. They didn't fuck them over until 2001. So that goes to show you it was already going to happen anyway. And that's what people don't realize, it wasn't even fair. Vince McMahon didn't win a war. Vince McMahon copied everything off WCW. Then WCW pulled the plug and fucked them over. Isn't that insane, Brittany? That's actually the truth. And I'm not even being biased. So Time Warner could put the promotion up for sale to the highest bidder. And that's when Vince McMahon in 2001, ironically, gets his hands on them and they fucked them over. See, look at this. WWF is having money problems of its own. See, back then, this is when Vince McMahon was losing money. Can you see that or no?
Yeah.
See, there's your proof. Everybody acts like WCW, oh, they're crap and WWF's God. No, WWF was actually garbage and only got successful copying off of WCW. But ironically, WCW was going to be fucked from the start. Isn't that insane? Because nobody has the actual magazines from then. They just listen to the idiots from now. Like Vince McMahon biasly just saying, oh, I was the best. No, you weren't. You got lucky you got lucky after seeing what the NWO were doing and copied them to Austin, and then you just copied their idea. And he got lucky. So check it out. They're doing all these predictions. Here's another one. WWF folds due to lack of big name talent and money. So that's what people don't realize is back then, WWF had nothing and they were losing money. And WCW was owned by billionaires. It would have never went out of business. Like I said, on WCW's worst day in 2001, they still had higher ratings than WWE now. That's what's insane, where everybody has the wrong idea, thinking WWE's king. WWE was never king. WWE copied off WCW. WCW got fucked over by its own ruler. Its own master. But Vince McMahon would never do that because he loves his company. So basically wrestling, here's the current state of wrestling. Wrestling is in the shithole because WWE rules over everyone and he's brainwashed everyone to see every other company like TNA, Ring of Honor as minor league inferior companies, even though they've been ahead of them by 10 years, forever now. TNA, they inherited all the guys WWF fucked over in 2001 and wouldn't push because they were WCW guys. Nobody realized that AJ Styles, who WWE is pushing now, was a WCW wrestler in 2001, and they were pushing him right before WCW got the plug pulled and fucked. And then TNA inherited him, made him a household name on Spike TV. So I hate all the marks saying, TNA, they're minor league. Well, everyone, that's your problem right there. Everyone's saying, oh, WCW held down guys. All you fans are the ones holding down people. You're holding down all these other companies because you won't let them become equivalent to WWE in your mind, even though they are on the show and talent. So then we could have another war to make everybody win because WWE was only good because they copied. So you need another company to come along to make WWE good again. There's your facts. But everybody just looks at TNA like, oh, TNA, they're just a company, they're copying WWE from the 90s, from the Attitude Era. Okay, what do you know? They're basically continuing where WCW left off because WCW was the one who did it anyway. Isn't that ironic that nobody puts these puzzle pieces together? How stupid. So now, and then TNA got fucked over because Dixie Carter embezzled all the money and destroyed it when it was doing great and it was finally... You had another company, and so Vince McMahon always wins by a fluke. He doesn't put big companies out of business. He basically gets lucky that they go and something fucks him over. So now TNA is back in good hands, and Jeff Jarrett, who made TNA, now he owns it again. He got it off her, so she's gone. So now it's Global Force Wrestling now, and it's back to normal, and it's in good hands. Everything's back to normal. But now they lost everybody because during the whole Dixie, around when she was embezzling all the money or not paying people and destroying it, they all jumped to WWE. So Vince McMahon always wins because something else. So they all jumped to Ring of Honor or WWE. So everyone's like, oh, AJ Styles is in WWE, now he's in the big leagues. Are you a fucking idiot? TNA was on national TV on Spike TV. I'm sorry, that counts as mainstream. You just don't want to give it a chance. So it's all the fans holding down wrestlers and holding down other companies. Wrestling will never be good until you let another company be equivalent for another wrestling war. That's the problem with the state of wrestling today. So that's your history of what happened, and then there's your current state now. Nobody will allow anything to happen because they're all under Vince's clutches saying no one's good enough. So you're all ruining it. But TNA was better from 02, even going back to 02. The day it was invented, or the day it was created, it was 10 years ahead of WWE. It had the Ultimate X match where these guys are literally hanging off ropes and then doing a Hurricane Rana off climbing a rope like a WWE will never even do a hardcore match now. They're a mile ahead of WWE, but it's not the name. When WWE is nothing, they're nothing without WCW, ever. Isn't that in so everyone listens to Jericho's podcast or all that? Jericho. Why do people think just because Jericho was in the business that he knows what he's talking about? Okay, he was given everything, and he was given the chance by WCW, like I said, when he would have never even got it the chance, and he doesn't even repay it. Same thing with Big Show. WCW brought the Big Show into wrestling, gave him the World Heavyweight title as a rookie in 95 and gave him everything, and then he left for WWE, and now he's just another guy to shit on it when don't you guys realize that you're not owed anything? You were made a household name by WCW, and really, let's look at the facts. From 95 to 99 is Bischoff's main era of the before Russo, and it's funny that people hate Russo because of WCW, but Russo's the one who was copying WCW and wrote for The Rock, wrote the Stone Cold stuff. He was ripping off WCW while he was the main writer for WWF. So isn't it funny that people hate Vince Russo, but if you like WWF and Austin and all that stuff, you actually love Vince Russo. So you're all stupid and don't know what you're talking about. That's what's ironic is that WWF copied itself to WCW, but then Russo's WCW in 2000 when Bischoff was gone before he came back in 2000 because they realized they made a mistake and brought him back. But it was WCW copied itself to WWF in 2000, but ironically, WWF copied itself to WCW first, so it's like a ring around. People don't put these things together. But just watch the whole timeline in order, and I got the facts all from. I got all the magazine. I got everything proof. I got everything you wanna, and so, you can't really argue any of this stuff. I have all the facts in order that you could literally go to your network, WWE Network, and watch it in order if you want. Go look at my magazine, Brittany. Don't you, Brittany? Am I not clear, or
yeah,
it's all right, or no?
Yeah.
So what? People are gonna still say, or what? How do you argue what I'm saying? It's all right here, and it's all the facts of what that. That's your truth. So that's so basically what ruined wrestling is the fact that in 2001 Vince McMahon destroyed it because in 2001 when WCW and ECW went out of business and he had no competition, so he didn't have to try. He didn't sign any of those guys like AJ Styles and all those great wrestlers. He dumped all the current stars that were getting built up. Like your Billy Kidmans and Diamond Dallas Page, or all the guys that were fresh new stars. He buried the whole thing, and they all had to become indie. All your guys they were gone from the face of wrestling because he was like, I'm getting rid of all the WCW guys. So he had a farm league called Ohio Valley Wrestling, and that's where he had his farm, where he brought up all these new guys. That's where Randy Orton was from, John Cena. So all these guys should have became stars probably by 2008 or years after. But he brought them, when WCW was gone, instead of using all the current stars then that were current, he basically restarted all over, ruined everything, and brought up all these guys like John Cena and Orton and started them way too early. And just brought up all them because he didn't want to build, God forbid guys were in WCW, he didn't want to use anybody from ECW or WCW. So he hired a few of them just to basically destroy. Because Tommy Dreamer, who was a main star of ECW, what did he do? He had Randy Orton slaughter him in 2 seconds on a Raw when he was building Randy Orton. So he basically brought up all the guys from LVW that were years behind, that didn't pay their dues, and he basically just in a year in 02, he destroyed the business and turned it 10 years ahead. That should have never. That's your true death of wrestling. But the fans now don't realize that because. Oh my God, Randy Orton and John Cena, they've been around since 02 now. So how long ago was that, Brittany? 15 years ago now?
Yeah.
So kids are teenagers now. So they don't see that. They're seeing as, what are you talking about? These guys, they're old. They're main guys. No, you don't realize that Vince slaughtered everything current then and brought them up way too early, where they should have had to wait a little bit later. See what I'm saying or no? And he destroyed the whole thing and brought them up and he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do any storylines or anything like back then that everybody likes. Like real, I'm talking about real actual story. He just does like, they talk on the mic. And what do? They go, I want your title. Let's wrestle. It's bullshit. People just watch this because they're sentimentally attached. He doesn't, like I said, after 01, he redid all his same storylines, or he copied, or he redid stuff from ECW or whatever. It's all just rehashing after 01. And even his product before 01, like I said, is a carbon copy of WCW. Let me bring up one other thing, since we're pretty much going on and on, right, Brittany? Doing everything all in one shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and let's do 2002. In 2002, Vince McMahon, because there's no competition, he decides to do a storyline where Ric Flair comes back and he gets half ownership of WWF. So he has a feud between Ric Flair, and he splits the shows Raw and SmackDown as two different companies. Well, Flair owns Raw, and he has to make like a war because WCW is gone. Okay, but it's his same show. So basically, he does where he wrestles Ric Flair for ownership of WWE, right? Well, he ripped that off too. Like if you watch the products, like if you don't know, watch everything in order from 94 or 95 all the way to 2000 on. He copies and redoes everything. Here's an exact picture of the feud from 99. In 2002, he does Flair vs. Bischoff for the company. WCW already did that. In 99, they did Eric Bischoff versus Ric Flair for the ownership for the running of WCW. There's him suplexing Eric Bischoff, and people don't know that storyline. See it? They did that in 99. Vince McMahon copied everything, and everyone, it's okay when WWE does it. There's your, how much proof do you want? Okay, remember I said the most profitable storyline is Austin versus Vince, which is a copy, Brittany?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what's their other one? Let's go to the magazine here, because the magazines don't lie. Right? Okay, what does this picture look like? Okay, you have the main wrestler, right? Holding the title. There's The Rock, corporate Rock, right? And there's Vince McMahon. Okay, can you get a shot of this in the light? That's the corporation, right? Where Vince McMahon is the owner of the business, and that's his group called the Corporation. Where Rock is the corporate champ, and there's Boss Man and his cronies, and the giant Big Show, right? There's the corp. Okay, what is the NWO? What is the NWO? You know, people are like, these are totally different ideas. The corporation is the exact ripoff of the NWO. What's Eric Bischoff? Is he the evil owner?
Yeah.
Corporate? If you're an owner, are you corporate?
Yeah.
So the NWO is corporate. They just don't wear suits. They wear jeans. So that's a ripoff. Hogan is the champion that the owner, Eric Bischoff, keeps the title on him, right? Mm-hmm. With the NWO, where everyone's like, how come Hogan doesn't lose the title? Right? And then the NWO are what? The corporation, the cronies, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what's this? Corporate Rock is Hogan, where Vince is keeping the title on him. And Big Boss Man, he was in the NWO as Ray Traylor. Oh, who's that? The Big Show. He was the giant in the NWO. This is an exact ripoff of the NWO, that picture right there. So they rip off everything a year later after WCW, or 2 years. There's Hogan. Rock is Hogan. Vince McMahon is Bischoff. There's the NWO, but it's the WWF corporate. They stole every idea and disguise it, where people are like, that's not the same thing. There. What do you think of that as a mind fuck, Brittany? They just copied everything to a T. So that's what I'm basically getting at. Everything is a ripoff. And then you got the Jerichos and all these people who shit on WCW because they didn't get the title. So so I have to fight for WCW now, like I did in my last video, where I take Vince McMahon to trial, or we put Eric Bischoff to save him, and go on trial. I made to show him as the innocent one, and Vince McMahon actually the guilty one and the liar in my other video. So this one is just basically a continuation, but you could see everything is an exact ripoff, and you've been lied to basically. So I'm the one having to do this when nobody even puts any of this together. I don't know, because it's just is it possible? Do Brittany, could people just have blinders on where they just don't put two and two together because they're just...
Yeah.
they just stole everything, and they're the... And you got the Jericho saying, but okay, how about all the guys that got held down by WWF when Shawn Michaels was running everything with the Click and running and doing whatever he wanted, or how about how they used Owen Hart, basically. Owen Hart, everybody loves Owen Hart because he died and everything. But he was completely held down, and they just used him to job and made nothing out of him. And if you could put a mic on him, he would say how much he's being held down in WWF and all that. But WWF, because WCW is not around, they just focus on what happened in WCW. They don't focus on how all the guys at WWF that would bitch, how they got fucked over. And every same thing backstage. But we only shit on WCW when it's the same politics or it's bullshit. So there's all your facts. You could just use any comparison. And that's what I want to do is this is like going from past to current, your current address of how we got to now and why it's a disintegration and just destroyed. And how, to this day, Vince McMahon makes money off other people. Like, I like how, I want to say this one last thing. He has the Hall of Fame, and people literally think the WWF is wrestling. No, they're not. They're one company. He puts guys that never even wrestled for him in his Hall of Fame, the WWE Hall of Fame. How is Sting in the WWE Hall of Fame when he wrestled one match for him? He literally could brainwash everyone to think he just runs wrestling as the Hall of Fame. Just because you own the footage of WCW and ECW doesn't mean that they're wrestlers of your guys when basically you took everyone after anyway. People are like, oh, Hall and Nash, they were WWF guys who jumped to WCW. No. Nash was in WCW first, too. Scott Hall was in WCW first. He was in the AWA first. Hogan was even already a household name in the AWA and before Vince stole him. Vince basically stole from everybody. Go ahead and look it up. Everything. And as lies to every kid now who's a teenager and every idiot old person, or basically you forgot. Or you're an old idiot who's my age. You know how many people I know that are my age who just picked up wrestling a few years ago and they just literally caught up watching the DVDs and they're like, oh yeah, WCW, they're crap. You know, and they don't even know anything. They didn't even watch it because they just bought the WWE DVDs and shit. It's completely unfair. I'm not saying WCW did everything perfect or I like this is not for me to just say, oh, WCW. I'm just saying that WWF's the more evil piece of shit that basically copied everything anyway. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I like every fucking thing WCW did. Fact is that WCW was owned by Time Warner once Ted Turner sold out and ruined, and the fact that they were owned by assholes and they were owned by non-wrestling people. Bischoff's not the guy to hate, and he basically did everything, so you can't hate him. And people are just brainwashed because they like Austin and Jericho's for how popular. I like them on TV, but they're wrong to shit on WCW just because they didn't get their way. You know, just as many people in WWF got screwed over, and it has nothing to do with that. If WCW didn't get screwed over, and it just kept going on today, it'd be going on forever, where guys would just be jumping back and forth, and the ratings would be switching. They just got fucked over. So that's it, and this is your whole basic outline of wrestling and the truth. So there you go. I just hope that you can't really argue my points, because you could look up everything I said. 2, in order. 2, I have the magazine, everything to prove the exact facts and everything in the book. But I just hope they actually listen to me and not just go like, oh, there's some idiot who. No, I really know what I'm talking about. I have every magazine, I have everything, and I gave you exact dates in order or everything to go look up if you don't believe me, right, Brittany?
Yeah.
So this is it in a nutshell, and I'm gonna put up the other one. The one got blocked. I'm gonna edit that where it gets unblocked, where you could actually see the footage of me showing you right through of how really WWF was nothing, played catch up, and then got to surpass them because, well, WCW later on in 2000, because I will admit this, which kills me, but I'll admit, WWE had the better show in 2000, but you had to copy everything and steal everything from them to get better. And WCW was under rule of a corporate company that wanted everything kiddie, and they said, nope, you can't do the middle finger. Nah, you can't be edgy anymore. So WCW got fucked over, so they're like, oh, WWE's better. Bischoff started everything, and then he basically got neutered and never had a chance, and then got fucked over because in 96, he never had it. It was going to die anyway. So that's why wrestling sucks and why it was dead from the beginning. And now we need you fans to give another company a chance to be equal and get behind another company, because WWE is an asshole, and get behind another company so then everybody wins, and then we can like both, and then every company will do good because of it. Just like I said, when I was a kid, I liked WCW, and I watched it right from the order. From 95, I saw it all happen in order, so I know who copied who. I saw it all exact, and I liked both. I was a fan. I taped. I have every episode of everything on tape behind that mirror. Every episode I taped. Back then, my dad taped them for me when I was a kid. I have Raw Nitro. We taped one in one room and taped one in another, and I was just a fan of everything. And I watched ECW because I was a super mark when people didn't. They didn't even know what ECW was. When I was a kid, everybody didn't even hear it. Nobody ever heard of. You know how like today, to companies like Ring of Honor and the indie scene, the independent circuit, like Lucha Underground, oh, that's so common now. You don't understand that before the internet, before just lately with YouTube where you can watch anything now, nobody back then when I was a kid in the night when we were kids knew of you didn't know what the independent circuit was. You can even ask CM Punk, and everybody even said when he was in high school, CM Punk is quoted for saying this, and you can look it up. He said, "I'm going to go become a professional wrestler," and all his friends, they're like, "Oh, are you going to go for a Raw or Nitro?" And he's like, "Well," what are you talking? There's the independent, all this other companies, and they're like, they didn't know. They thought you just magically get to Raw or Nitro, just like with football, where there's no, other sports don't have a farm. There's just one company, Brittany, or there's just the NFL. There's just the, right? And you like that with wrestling. There's always the independent circuit, and everyone now, the fans, they think that WWE is the king, and all these are inferior. No, look at this, okay? Real quick, I just want to show that one last time. Not to keep going on and on, but to show you fans that this is the official magazine of pro wrestling, and they ranked every company internationally, and whether you were into indie or everything. See how they ranked? This is just the ratings. Where here's international with IWGP and AAA, and all the companies in ECW, and this is when nobody saw really ECW except for on the East Coast, like I was saying, on local TV. Small, tiny, nobody even heard of it back then. But they ranked it, and everything is ranked indie, because all indie means is you're independent and you're not owned by a company. Like, say you sell out and then you get on TNN. Because what happened to ECW is they got on Spike TV, which was TNN back then, and they became a part of them, and TNN basically used them as a guinea pig to see if they can get WWF, because the WWF was hugely popular in 2000 when they got on, and they used them as a guinea pig to see if wrestling would work on their network, and it did. So they basically fucked over ECW, but ECW sold out and became a part of them, so they weren't independent anymore. All independent means is you don't have a cable deal, but that doesn't mean you're minor. There's all these fans now who think, those companies are inferior to WWE. No, they're just not on national TV. But if you get the official magazines, it's equal. They do the PWI, they do the Pro Wrestling Illustrated 500, ranking the 500 best wrestlers in the world, and that's everybody. It's just that people have the wrong idea of everything because Vince McMahon doesn't acknowledge the other companies, and he pretends he's the only one. He's a scumbag. Here's the one last thing I forgot. Here's what he did. TNA's been around for years on Spike TV since 2005, I think. Since they've been on Spike, on national TV, and now they're not, but I'm just saying then. All them guys that were household names like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, and all the James Storm, all these guys like Eric Young, all these guys were household names, Bobby Roode, in TNA, but nobody was watching, or because they're like, oh, they're not WWE, or it's not, but they were household names technically on national TV on Spike. WWE, they have this company called NXT, which is they're making a farm where they're putting all these household names in, and they're pretty much just implying that they were never anybody and that they never heard of. They're not real stars, and they're these nobodies, and they're pretending their past never happened and TNA doesn't exist. How could you like a company like that? They're basically shitting on all these wrestlers who are household names in TNA and saying, no, they were nothing. We made them. Loki went there and they made him Kaval, and he was a nobody. That never happened. They put him in the minor. They basically made a minor with NXT. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to think that wrestling is all pro and there is no minor league, because that's how it really is on the indie scene, and you pay your due. They're making a minor league and making a mockery of all these household names, and then when they didn't do that to is Samoa Joe and AJ. The rest they made into a piece of shit, which were already household names in TNA. That's why Vince McMahon is a scumbag. He buried ECW and destroyed it and made it OVW. Then he took all the TNA guys and turned them into fucking nobodies on NXT, and then all these wrestling fans are brainwashed and just like WWE, and they're like, oh, now they're in the big league. How could you think that? You're supposed to like both companies and be fair and be a wrestling fan, because that's how wrestling works. One's good because of the other. They were already stars, and you're basically okay with the fact that Vince McMahon spin on them and made them nothing. Because you didn't watch TNA when you were there, because you only watched WWE. That is what's wrong with wrestling, is all you not watching the other companies like TNA and not acknowledging all the good shit they did, and not acknowledging that they're already stars, and giving into, you should boycott NXT. That was the main thing I want to say that I forgot about because I got so into everything. That's it in a nutshell. What's wrong with wrestling today is the fact that NXT making already household name stars into nobodies, not acknowledging TNA, and the fact that the fans are holding down other companies. That's it in a nutshell. and you should hate WWE for everything I just proved to you, and you could go look up everything I said. And then there's your proof with the magazine. So there you go. There's your state of wrestling now, why it's been a corpse ever since 2001. There you go. You could cut it now. That's it.